I want to thank you for tuning into my moment. You rocking with your boy, Stay Humble, here to give you a little bit of encouragement for the day. We've been talking about being imitators of God and then moving on to showing no partiality. Last week, we touched on this scripture a little bit here in Luke chapter 7, but we're going to hit it a little heavier today. So I want you to tune in with me. Luke chapter 7, starting in verse 36, and we're going to cover verses 36 to 40 today. But here's where it starts. One of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him. All right, so a Pharisee named Simon asked Jesus to come into his home and eat with him. Sorry, the allergies, I apologize about that. But eat with him. And he went into the Pharisee's house and took his place at the table. So here you've got this religious, the guy that everybody in the street would think is pious and godly. He is the epitome of what it looks like to be right with God from the sinner's perspective. All right, so here's this great religious man, teacher of the law. He is that dude. All right, Jesus goes into his house to eat with him. Verse 37, and behold, a woman of the city who was a sinner. So it's interesting because in Luke chapter 15, when we hear the story about the parable of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the prodigal son, there are two sets of people that gather around to hear this story. First, it's the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes. They're all kind of gathered around, and but then it says that the sinners and the tax collectors, they drew near to hear this, to hear what Jesus was saying. All right. So the Pharisees, they sit back, they grumble, and the sinners, the tax collectors, are like, man, let's hear this, right? So here it says, a woman of the city who was a sinner. So what that means is, off top, you would be able to recognize her as somebody who was living an ungodly lifestyle. She obviously didn't look like the Pharisee, okay? Lifestyle didn't line up with that. And when it says a woman of the city who was a sinner, when she learned that he was reclining at a table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of ointment. So here, this woman, most likely a prostitute, this woman living an ungodly lifestyle, hears that Jesus is in her neighborhood. She's at the house eating with this religious guy, and her boldness to go in, she's like, yo, I just got to go see Jesus. I have to get to him. And she doesn't come empty-handed. Instead, she comes with this alabaster box. There's this flask. It's a box filled with ointment. I mean, there's money represented here. This cost her something, all right? And peep what she does. And standing behind him at his feet, behind Jesus at his feet, weeping, she's broken before him. She began to wet his feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair, with the hair of her head, and kissed his feet and anointed them with ointment. So here this woman is broken before Jesus, and she begins to cry on his feet, to wash his feet, and then wipe his feet with her hair. This is an amazing act of worship, okay? And Jesus receives the worship, letting us know he truly is God, okay? But he receives that worship, and check it out. Here's what's so amazing, because Simon, and we'll get to this in the next verse, Simon says, yo, if he was really a prophet, he wouldn't let this woman be touching him, because if this woman is touching Jesus, then he would be deemed ceremonially unclean. This sinful woman is touching a godly man, and now he'd be unclean. But check it out. See, John chapter 6, verse 37 says this, all that the Father, this is what Jesus says, all that the Father gives me will come to me. All that the Father gives me, they will come. They'll come to me. And whoever comes to me, I will never cast out. Well, as long as they don't, no. I will never cast out. That's good news, yo. That's good news for the believer, all right? That means his love for us isn't wishy-washy. And what it also means is this woman did not get herself together before she came. You know, so often we hear, especially being out on the street, oh, well, you know, when I get myself together, then I'm going to start coming to church. And when I get myself, look, man, it ain't about getting yourself together. Come, because here's what happens. This is what's so amazing. And this is what I have written down here. This is so good. This woman touching Jesus doesn't make Jesus unclean. Okay? This woman reaching out and crying on him and washing his feet with her tears and wiping his feet with her hair. This doesn't make Jesus unclean. Okay? Instead, her touching Jesus makes her clean. She is actually cleansed of her sin because she touched Jesus. And I'm going a little bit long here, but just ride with me. There's another story when Jesus is coming into town, all right? And as he's walking into town, they're taking a dead man, a woman's son, her only son. They're taking him out of town, all right? And everybody is weeping and crying. And, you know, you don't touch a dead body because you would be unclean. But once again, when Jesus touches the body, he doesn't become unclean. Instead, the uncleanness of a dead body leaves and that man becomes alive again. All right? Another example, the woman who presses through the crowd with the issue of blood, bleeding 12 years. When she touches Jesus, he doesn't become unclean. Instead, the uncleanness leaves her body and she is healed when she touches Jesus. Okay? Guys, this is good news, man. Come, okay? So, here's what Simon says, though. Now, when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, listen, he said to himself, this was his thought, if this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what sort of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner. So here the prophet says, from his pious point, from his, I am a godly man, I am righteous before God. From that standpoint, he says, oh man, Jesus really can't be a prophet, because if he was, he'd know this woman is a sinner. And Simon is not? I beg you believers, don't get to this point where we start to talk about other people being sinners like we're not. Like there's not still sin in our own lives. Like we don't still fall short. And this is the issue with self-righteous people. They see the sins of others, but not their own sin. Remember, Jesus said, hey, before you go and try to take the speck out of your brother's eye, make sure you take care of that big log, that big plank hanging out your own. Okay? Self-righteous people are a deterrent for drawing people to God. All right? So we're to be imitators of God, not self-righteous men. We have to remember that, okay? So here's what it says. He said to himself, well, if Jesus was a prophet, he wouldn't let this woman touch him because he'd know what type of woman she was. She's a sinner. That's what he said to himself. That was his thought. So he can't really be a prophet. But peep verse 40. And Jesus answering said to him, wait a minute, but Simon didn't speak out loud. Simon had a thought. And Jesus answering said to him, Simon, I have something to say to you. And Jesus begins to go in and answer Simon's thought. And he answered, say it, teacher. So next week, we'll look at what the teacher says to Simon, this self-righteous Pharisee. It's amazing to see when we imitate God, how people will be drawn, you know, and they're drawn to us, but really it's not us. It's us imitating. It's reflecting the Father's glory. It's us showing the love of Christ that he's deposited in our hearts to others. And when we do that, people are drawn by the Spirit. So I just want to encourage you, man, do not be imitators of self-righteous leaders. People who say, oh man, you know, if he was really a man of God, he wouldn't be out there standing talking to them. Oh man, if he was really a man of God, he wouldn't be over there socializing with them or fraternizing with them. Oh man, if he was really a man of God, he wouldn't be da-da-da-da-da. Well, I thank God that we don't have to live up to your view of what it means to be righteous before God. Jesus set a standard for us. It is our job to imitate him. God bless you guys. This is your moment.